That's what I've been waiting for.
Here we are, guys. Second month of 2024. And we already have our first case of Mind Creep's Law. And you're like, well, what's Mind Creep's Law? And I'll tell you, Mind Creep's Law states that for every block placed, there's a minor chased. That's a joke. That's not really that funny. But in all sincerity, this situation is very difficult and very serious. And I want to make it perfectly clear that any joke that I may make today is not directed to the victim in this case. This is a very serious situation. It's a very terrible situation. These jokes are not at the victim's expense. And today we are talking about a very, very recent situation, pretty much here, now situation, regarding a man going by the name Wilbur Soot and a fellow Twitch streamer going by the name Shubel, or Shelby. And so without further ado, let's get into it. On February 21st, the Twitch streamer known as Shubel posted this on X and basically then followed this with a Twitch live stream. And basically she talked about how in her past relationship, she was essentially abused by her past boyfriend in that situation. And we're not talking about what you would normally think of when you think of physical abuse, like hitting or punching or like the usual physical activities that you would think would consist of abuse. No, we're talking about biting, which in my opinion is very strange. It's a very strange practice. I'm not much of a biter, to be honest. Shubel states that her boyfriend was very upfront with his peculiar habit and that he claimed that it was his way of showing affection. Honestly, a pretty strange way of showing affection, biting somebody, you know. And he wanted her consent because he didn't want her to come out in the future like now and basically say that he was abusing her, which honestly, that's a pretty weird thing to bring up, you know, when you're talking to your girlfriend and stuff. Listen, I don't want you to think I'm an abuser when I'm hitting you. I just want you to know I'm hitting you out of affection, you know? When I just take my fist and just go, it's just showing that I love you. And you know what? I want your consent for that because, you know. So we have here as well Shubel's stream VOD I found on YouTube, the whole thing, pretty much. We're not going to look at the whole thing. We're going to look at some portions of it, basically hear what she has to say on some other things as well. So, yeah.
But he did mention something early that I should have taken as a red flag. And he wanted to make sure that I was okay with him biting me because he didn't want me to come back later and say that he abused me, which I thought was
kind of sus, kind of strange.
Never hurt me before. And so why would I
very weird.
Abuse? And why was he thinking about that? And I thought he was being sweet, checking on me to make sure that I was still comfortable. But of course I was, because he hadn't hurt me. And why would I think he ever would?
Exactly. This is the situation.
And then he did, for the first time, by accident. And I don't specifically remember the actual first time that he bit me too hard by accident, because I didn't think that it would be significant. I thought that it would only happen once. And he started biting me more and more over a period of time, sort of throughout the whole relationship, and accidents of him biting too hard and really hurting me happened more and more frequently.
This is terrible.
But he always seemed genuinely sorry, and he decided that he didn't want to keep accidentally hurting me. So we were going to use a safe word, so he could learn where my limit was, where my pain tolerance ended. And saying that out loud now doesn't sound like that's not very sound logic.
No,
but
no, not at all. I mean, if he cared about not hurting you, would he just not do it anymore? I don't think that's something that she doesn't know, but that doesn't make any sense. Like, if I was like, oh, I'm sorry for hurting you, I don't want to hurt you ever again, I will stop. No, this is what we'll do. I'll make a safe word. Here's a good safe word. Stop. Honestly, really, yeah. It's pretty simple. That's a good safe word. If someone's doing something, oh, you're biting me too hard. Stop. Okay. See, that's a pretty good safe word. Also, he could just not do it anymore. As I said, that's a little. It's just one red flag. Another red flag in this whole situation, which is an absolute shame.
Reality, it's like, why are you biting so hard? And why do you have to bite so hard?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be that hard of a problem to stop.
Right.
That shouldn't be that hard. And he disguised it as this really quirky part of our relationship and was so comfortable sharing it with his friends to the point that he would do it in front of them. He thought it was this really funny
That's
story to
awful.
tell and a good bit to take my arm and bite me in front of everybody until I literally shout in pain. And then I have to laugh it off because I'm so embarrassed and I don't want to cause a scene in front of all of our friends. And I'm sure everyone was a little bit uncomfortable, but as long as I was saying that it was fine, nobody really felt like they needed to be concerned, and that's not
about
anybody's
right.
fault because
That's right.
I was
So-
lying. I was lying, and it wasn't fine because I would go home later and I'd tell him how uncomfortable I was, how much I didn't like being hurt all the time, and I needed him to really stop biting so hard. I didn't like it, and I tried telling him over and over again because he asked him to stop again. This time he said, "This is who he is. He isn't going to change." Those were his words. And I remember a lot of specifically his words about certain things, especially at the end, because I'm good at remembering words. And especially his wording, I became really good at remembering because he was constantly contradicting himself. And I would notice, but most of the time it wasn't worth picking a fight over. But he would fight me on it sometimes because I would point it out. And he would insist that he had never said the thing that he said. He definitely did say. And then he would say something like, "How are you so sure you're remembering correctly? Why are you always right?" And he definitely said the things that I...
That's absolutely a terrible way to behave in any situation. That's literally, I'm pretty sure, gaslighting. The literal definition, too. It's not like, there's a little bit of leeway. It may or may not be. No, this is just straight up gaslighting, which is crazy. It's crazy. This situation is so terrible, and I feel really bad for this person. Just because of all the stuff that she apparently went through. And to think that we know who this is now, and we figured out who it is and stuff, that they came out and said, "Oh, I'm sorry." The fact that this is what she went through is terrible, and this person absolutely needs to be ashamed. They need to be guilty, and to be honest with you, they need to issue a proper apology.
So he had now at this point weaponized the safe word and was using it to ensure that I was hurt and on a constant basis. And he wasn't sorry anymore. I couldn't even tell you the last time he had apologized for doing it anymore because now sometimes he would bite me and I would yell out the safe word because it hurt so bad, and he'd clamp down even harder.
That's not even...
Just for a second, just for good measure, before letting go. And sometimes I'd say the safe word and he'd grind his teeth down on my skin. And sometimes he'd smile after.
That's awful.
Like a gloating grin. And during this time, I was filled with so much anxiety all the time that I was constantly nauseous, gagging daily.
It's terrible.
On occasion throwing up because of the pit that was in my stomach. I never told him about that, though. I was going and running away quietly to throw up in the toilet.
I would have got out of there so fast. That's another red flag straight away. That's like number 3, right? The first one was, "Hey, I'm not going to stop. Let's use a safe word." Second was, "I'm not going to change." Third one was, "Oh, now every time he bites me and I do use the safe word, he does it harder or worse than what." So I think the thought process of him was, okay, well, I don't like it when she uses the safe word, so let's try and train her to never ever use it because that's going to issue more pain than just taking it, which is a terrible, terrible thing. It's awful. And this is absolutely insane. To be honest with you, I thought it was not as bad as this. From what I was gathering off of social media and other various sources, it didn't seem as bad as this. But once you take a look at this and hear what's going on and hear all the stuff that she's gone through, it is way worse. And the fact that this person, the boyfriend, is not in jail is astounding. It is crazy. It is crazy that she hasn't turned him in to the police.
And rejoin our group of friends. But I felt so unwanted and ignored. And I would tell him that. And then he would reassure me that he wanted to be together and he loved me. He loved me more than I loved him, even. He would always insist that that was true, like that. I love you more. But he was like really serious about it. And looking back, I do believe that the way I was swept off my feet at the beginning of this relationship was 100% love bombing. And we were friends for a time. At least people would have thought that, actually. But I use the word friend very loosely because we had actually never spoke to each other outside of group chats we were in together when, like, a handful of times throughout the whole time that we knew each other, but did not talk to each other. So I wouldn't have even called him my friend until he found out I was single.
Yeah.
Waited a few weeks to reach out, and then we started a friendship. And then that friendship turned romantic, and then he made these huge romantic gestures. He wrote me the most beautiful love letter that I had ever read. He called me his soulmate. He talked about forever 1 month in. He told me he hadn't been in a relationship in 5 years. He thought he could never find love again before he met me. He said he wanted someone to grow with. He wanted to be a dad. He had all his names picked out. And I didn't have a preference because my feeling of it is if the timing is right and with the right person, I could. But if that doesn't work out in time or the time's right, I'm not super pressed about it. But I started opening my mind up to the idea with him because it seemed so important to him. And
yeah.
I kept trying to talk to him to figure out where he was later on when I could tell things like were declining. And now all of a sudden he's telling me he's not sure he wants kids at all. In fact, he has never been attached to the idea of kids. And I told him that isn't what he said before. And he said he's allowed to change his mind. And I'm of the opinion that in a relationship, there are a few things that you are not actually allowed to change your mind without letting your partner know. I think that kids is one of them.
That's valid.
Even important to me.
Completely.
And I think marriage is one of them, so I brought that up next. And I asked if he still wanted marriage. He said he wanted to marry me. And then he said, now, I'm not quote, I'm not the commitment guy. You know that. I didn't know that.
After he sent that huge love letter and that he told her he wanted to be with her forever, I'm not the commitment guy. That is potentially the stupidest thing I've ever heard. How in the world do you say that? How do you ever say that? After you already reached out, did all these things, was that just to get in? Was that just to get in the... What's the proper word? To get into this relationship? Just using that as tools to get in so you could do this stupid stuff? This awful things? Was it just your tools to get what you wanted? That's absolutely terrible.
Why are you dating me? In fact, he was telling me the exact opposite every day.
Yeah.
He would tell me he still wanted to be together. He wanted to work on all of the problems. He wanted me at the end of everything. He did not want to break up. He made that very clear. And I have, though, caught him in lies before, but usually it was small stuff, and I didn't want to, it wasn't anything that ever seemed worth rocking the boat over, which isn't normal for me. I hate lies, and yet I ended up lying for him, so.
Yeah.
But he had lied about
Ironic.
things, and he had also been caught lying by his friends numerous times. So this is something that he feels is acceptable to do. And everything reached a breaking point when he was about to leave for an extended period of time. We were not going to see each other very much, a few days out of every few months. And now suddenly he is dumping all of these problems that he has been having feelings about all of this time later. At one point he said he's been feeling this way a couple months. At another point he says he's been feeling this way for 6 months, immediately contradicting himself in the same conversation. And with no time to do anything about it. I arrive, the one of... Never mind, I'm going to get to something later, but...
I know quite a few liars where they're habitual liars. And when you have a habitual liar, most of the time it is something that they were trained to do. I don't really think that you necessarily can just be one from who you are. I think that a lot of times you're trained to be, at least in the cases of the people that I know, most of the time, the people that I know who are liars, their parents or one of their parents is a liar as well. And because the one lies and the other one doesn't care, or they get away with it, or they see that it's okay to be this way, they ingrain this into their personality. And I'm not an expert on this. I just have a couple friends that are like this. Maybe other people are like this, maybe not. I don't know. I'm not an expert. As I said, I'm just saying that the people that I know, they ingrain it into their personality. They'll lie about what they're having for dinner. What motive do they have for lying about what they have for dinner? I don't know. It doesn't matter to me, to be honest. They could just told me the truth. I'm not going to say, well, that's awful. I don't care what you're having for dinner. I just, but they'll lie about anything. And even if you bring it up or they're bringing up conversation, they'll lie. They'll throw a lie in there and you don't know what to believe from this person. And the fact that I couldn't imagine being in a relationship with someone who is a habitual liar. There would be no way I could, to be honest with you. Because you would never know what to believe. You wouldn't know, anything. This is such a stupid state. I don't even know what I'm talking about at this point, but I just know that it would be absolutely terrible to be in this situation where you're stuck in a relationship with someone who would lie about the weather for no reason or something like that. I don't know if that's the situation, just from some of the friends that I've had and stuff like that. It's a very terrible situation, but I couldn't imagine. It's absolutely awful. Throughout the stream, Shubal actually never uses the boyfriend's name in any of this. So, and this makes it seem more true because in the past we've had people who come out and post videos like this and they give the person's name and they tell them who it is and all this stuff. And a lot of times those people are considered clout chasers. They're in it for the popularity. They're in it to make waves, stuff like that. With, Miss Pansino and Mr. Beast in the past, where it's just clout chasing, and blatantly, too. There's nothing really, no bias to it. In this situation, she's not. She's being very private with it, and she's telling her story, but not making a point to try and gain fame from it, which is, I think, good. Another reason could also be she's afraid of the audience of this person. And to be fair, this person's audience is very toxic in certain situations. It's like a rattlesnake. When it's threatened, it bites. So that's the situation. That's the situation with a lot of Minecraft content people, is that they are like that. When one person is threatened, the whole community tends to rise up and bite whatever is causing the issue, whether it be true or not. And I know what you're kind of thinking. Well, how do we know who this is? You mentioned Wilbur Soot earlier. How do we actually know that this is who it is? Well, friends, this is where it starts to get crazy. On the 27th of February, Wilbur Soot posted this response on X. In the past week, a series of allegations have been made Over my conduct from an ex-girlfriend, I want to emphasize that although I feel it fair to offer my perspective, this person's feelings are completely valid. I have taken my time in sharing this statement, as I wanted to process and respond respectfully, and with the hope to gain a deeper understanding for the situation. I mean, you have a pretty deep understanding, you literally are the cause. During our relationship's final months, I regrettably became slobbish, disrespectful, and selfish. These actions caused a lot of pain to my ex-girlfriend, and I've since sought therapy to address these behaviors. You know what caused pain to your girlfriend? Biting her. Ooh! Making significant lifestyle changes to rectify my past actions. I have come to realize how much my past behavior hurt this person, but I truly, compassionately believe I have made great strides from the person I once was, and hope to continue to grow and improve on this trajectory. The allegations of abuse, particularly in the form of biting, deeply shocked me. Although throughout our relationship, I understood from our numerous conversations and text message exchanges on the subject that this behavior was consensual, playful, and reciprocally, I think that's the word, enjoyed. I truly believe those personal messages reflect mutual affection and understanding. Out of respect for her, I chose not to publish them, and I emphasize my perspective is not shared to diminish or invalidate anyone's feelings, except that's exactly what you're doing. Instead, I shout in the hope that I can offer a genuine, fair, and relevant insight to my misunderstanding of the situation. While I may perceive our interactions differently, I recognize that this person has processed and expressed feelings of hurt. I want to extend my sincerest apologies for any pain that I caused. I am fully committed to understanding and addressing her concerns going forward. I hope my perspective sheds light on this situation without detracting from its message. I am dedicated to earning and maintaining the trust of those around me, and hope I continue to be held to these high standards I wish to attain and maintain. Will. And while Wilbur Soot never mentions Shubal in this, he never says her name, never gives any necessary straight up confirmation that this is what it is about her. We can obviously guess from the timing of this tweet that it is indeed talking about that situation and her. And as far as apologies go, it's about average. You know, we have the usual talking about accountability, and then we go into the straight, immediate attempt to invalidate the other person and validate their own actions. Pretty common in them. I mean, he could have skipped the accountability and went straight to validation, like someone we know. What's kind of hilarious is that he probably could have gotten away with like just the first page. The first page isn't too bad. If I could say that, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. Isn't too bad. He starts basically talking about the situation, then basically admitting that he was an awful, terrible person, and that he is trying to make changes, which I think is a pretty valid way to write a apology. And then he comes in with the second page and just pretty much punches everybody in the face with, yeah, but I don't think that I was actually in the wrong, which is a terrible, like, why he would think that that'd be a good thing to post, I don't know. Maybe because he's insane. Maybe I don't know. When you're a abuser, I'm sure you make up a lot of things in your mind to justify your actions. I don't know. And the thing is, too, this outed himself. He didn't even have to post this. He could have just been quiet and nobody would ever known it as him. I guess guilt got to the old British biter. This situation has essentially created a landslide in the community. Basically, everybody is excommunicating him from their ranks, from their friend groups and stuff. Basically, they're throwing him out because they realize this guy is most likely, he needs help. I don't know. I don't know what to say there. I'm just saying they're getting rid of him. They're kicking him out. People like Dream, people like Purple, people like Puns. Basically, Nikki Niachu actually is a past girlfriend. Hasn't said anything on it yet. Would be interesting to see what she has to say. Whether this is behavior that he's done before. You know, when you build a case against someone, you normally want more than 2 or more witnesses to acts such as this. And that's just my personal opinion. And a lot of people are looking to his friends to see their thoughts, to see their takes on the matter and things. But the thing at the end of the day is it's not about them. It's not about them at all. It's not about who's trending on Twitter with, you've got all these people trending on Twitter. You've got Dream and Tommy and Will, all these different people trending on Twitter. And to be honest with you, it's not about them. This whole situation, it's not about them at all. And I think we need to remember what it's actually about. It's about the fact that Shubble put herself, her heart, her feelings out there for someone who turned out to be an absolute monster, essentially. A rotten individual. That they were hurt. Even worse, that they were abused by this individual. And that he turned her abuse into a form of a joke and a bit for all her friends to laugh at. Which essentially is normalizing his behavior and finding a way to fit it into every situation, which is absolutely terrible. And the thing is, he knew what he was doing was wrong, and he continued, which is awful. Absolutely. And that's what the situation is about. It's about how this person is a victim, and that we need to basically stand by her and get rid of the rot, again, that has formed in that community. And I'm not really in that community. I'm kind of on the outside, but when you see something like this, it's hard to ignore, It's pretty terrible. Do I think that Wilbur can be redeemed? Yes, absolutely. I'm a firm believer in second chances. However, what he says and what he may say may absolutely destroy that second chance, especially if he's going to keep posting apologies like this where it's absolutely stupid. And being an abuser, once you're marked as that, it's very hard to shake. Do I think he'll come back from? No. Do I think he may deserve a second chance? I guess we'll have to see. But, maybe I don't know anything about this. Maybe you know a little bit more. Please, I'd love to hear your takes. Comment it down below. I'm interested in seeing what you have to say on the subject, what your thoughts are. Please leave a like on the video if you enjoyed. It helps the algorithm, helps this video get out there for more people to see. So please do that. And if you enjoyed this content, you want to see more of my content, please subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss a video. Thank you, and you have a nice day.